Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I wanted to talk about 3 things that I wish I could change about PG life in India. My name is Dr. Shivapriya and I make videos around mental health and life of a doctor in India. The first thing that I would like to change about the medico postgraduate life in India is the 36-hour or even more shift. Let me tell you, residents having long working hours is such a talked about topic in the medicine community. With all the available information on how sleep deprivation affects your cognitive functioning, affects attention and concentration, how it affects the mental health of the individual, and how it leads to more mistakes, I'm awestruck that this is still a practice in today's medical life. It doesn't encourage a good work-life balance, and honestly, in that sleep-deprived state, how much can a person even learn? I do think one of the reasons why we have longer shifts is that by having longer shifts, you can kind of reduce the frequency of duties. However, do people really mind having more frequent duties, which are more balanced in terms of the number of hours, as opposed to having 36 hours, or sometimes it will be a double duty, and I can't even calculate how many hours that is. So a couple of solutions that I think would work really well is that can you have 12-hour shifts? The person who's doing duty does 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and then somebody else comes, does 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. and they give a handover so that there is a continuity of patient care. The second potential solution to this problem is that can we have 2 people on duty? Do you think residents would mind having 2 or more people on duty so that they can kind of take a couple of hours off and go get some sleep? Or another solution is that let's say they need to do a 24-hour shift. If they're doing the 24-hour shift, can they then get a post-duty off for at least a couple of hours, let's say 6 to 8 hours, so that they can go freshen up, have some sleep, eat some food, and then get back so that, there's so much work that needs to be done. Another thing is, do patients really want sleep-deprived doctors? Even at the individual level, when let's say I go in for a consultation, I would much rather interact with a well-rested, fresh doctor than as opposed to someone who's at the end of a 36-hour shift in the last 1 hour and they're cranky. And, I would prefer a well-rested doctor for sure. A well-rested and a well-fed doctor for sure. The second thing that I wanted to talk about is, can thesis be made optional? Okay, hear me out. Before you come at me and be like, no, Shivapriya, research is really important. I'm not saying that let the student not do any research, okay? Now, thesis is basically original research that is done by the student, and it's usually a challenging research idea, which takes a lot of time and a lot of resources. PG students have a really hard time in completing their thesis, and sometimes it just breaks my heart to see how stressed they are. While there are institutes which support the PG students in actually doing their thesis and by, giving them time, giving them financial resources, not every institute is like that. And it's really difficult for many PG students to find time to actually do their research. I do wonder if this is one of the reasons which ends up in PG students, falsifying their data or, going to some random statistician in order to get some results and, or, plagiarizing their thesis. So I don't think all students who do this are necessarily bad. Maybe they're just feeling really stressed. They aren't able to find time to do the actual research. Why do we have a thesis? Now, one of the reasons why we have a thesis is that the person ends up having a really in-depth knowledge and understanding on that particular topic, right? And another reason why we have thesis is that it teaches a lot about research methodology. It teaches you how to do a review of literature, how to come up with a research question, how to interpret statistics, how to do the statistics yourself. So these are some very useful skills for doctors. So I'm not saying don't have any research at all. Instead of doing a complex, challenging thesis, especially in settings which don't offer that kind of support to students, can they just do a simple study? Would a simple study be enough for them to learn research methodology and statistics and interpretation of data? And let's say they are interested. Let's say they're someone who is interested in academic career, who want to have an academic career. Then let them go ahead and choose a more complex topic and do it like a thesis. But if they're not interested in academia and they just want to go out, set up a clinic and see patients, then can those kind of students opt in to do a less complex study, at the same time learn some things about research methodology? And if they're interested, they can always do a more complicated, challenging research idea. Time is such a limited resource in MD life that I think having thesis as optional and giving in an option of doing a less complex study, it would be useful in many sense. May not take away from those benefits. And let's say someone is interested, let them go ahead and do it, and let the institute support them in doing it. But if they're not interested, then let them do a simpler study. The third one that I would like to change is removing the system of final exam. Usually what happens in MD life, the way that they determine whether this person gets the PG degree, the specialization degree, is through an exit exam. So they have an exam which usually lasts a couple of days, maybe 1 to 2 days, and they'll have a theory exam, they'll have practicals along with it, and practicals will involve a short case, long case, and in psychiatry it also involves a neuro case. So a couple of cases and a couple of different stations and situations are presented to the student, which they're supposed to explain how they manage. Let's say a student is very good, very hardworking, did their work very sincerely for 3 years, but then they have exam anxiety. Then it's perfectly possible that a good student will end up performing poorly on the exam day and end up having to stay back for 6 more months. The same thing, the reverse is also possible. Let's say somebody is a kaamchor, they are not working properly, they are escaping, they're cutting corners, they don't have the actual clinical skills. Once in a while they show up and they kind of have some practical knowledge, along with they spend time the last 6 months in by hearting theory. Okay, now this person who actually may not even have the skills that is required for that particular MD may end up passing just out of luck. Let's say they get a simple case, then definitely they can end up passing. The system of exit exam doesn't necessarily capture if this person is actually having the skills to become a doctor, and in my case, a psychiatrist. Do they have those individual skills? Because what happens is a lot of people pass and then they don't even know how to put a Foley's catheter. They don't know how to put a Riles tube. You can kind of, if you're lucky enough, get through the exam without that being evaluated. And that's scary. So what I think is you can have the exit exam, but along with the exit exam, can you also have some way of a continuous assessment and feedback system, which is not necessarily so pressurized, so that you just assess the skills, whether this person has the skill. If they have the skill, they move on to the next step. If they don't have the skill, you give them a feedback on what they need to improve. And then if they improve, you go ahead and let them proceed to the next level. And without having this just one exam, pass that exam, you get your degree kind of a system. And I think this also would take away the pressure of, shouting at residents or scolding residents for work not done. Instead, you can just speak to them and tell them that, these are the skills that is required. And as and when you have these skills, definitely you can go on to the next level. I think then it's much more of a pleasant interaction as opposed to, I will see you at the final exam and all that stuff. So if they have the skills, they move on, they get the degree at whatever time frame that is suitable for them. I think that would work better. But yeah, all of these are just hypotheses. Currently, it's not yet there, although some of these topics are being considered and these changes may come up in the future in MD curriculum. Let's see what happens. What do you guys think about these 3 things? About having 36-hour shifts, about having a thesis being mandatory and also publication, as well as having just this exit exam system? Do you think it should be the other way around? Do you think there are other reasons why these 3 practices are currently in play? Let me know. Let's have a friendly discussion down in the comments below. If you like this video, definitely subscribe to me. You can also support this channel by buying me a cup of coffee in case you're interested in that sort of a thing. Have a nice day and take care. Bye-bye.